Man, all these references to Back to the Future, I'm really hoping for some Bill and Ted. San Dimas High School football rules!
For sure, if we fade, then it's a lie. But you know we are the sun. And we'll
This is Lost Books for episode 14, entitled The Variable. This week, we'll test the limits of whatever happened, figure out how many ticks it takes to get to the bottom of metronome, and start the countdown until the incident. A variable stands for something we can change. It is the opposite of a constant. Variables are things we have to account for because they change. This episode brought the introduction of Daniel telling us that the past is impossible to change, but it is possible to change the future. This goes against whatever happened to a certain degree. Perhaps whatever happened only applies to those who are in the timeline naturally. It doesn't apply to the Losties who are in the timeline via time travel. But the plane crash is technically the past for the Losties, so how can they change their own past even though it happens in the future? This episode was Daniel-centric, and his flash forbacks got me a little emotional. Even if it's destiny, it's horrible to think that she sent her own son to die at her own hands. That just paints Eloise Hawking in a bad light. Let's jump into the episode. Desmond was shot. I guess the milk wasn't bulletproof. Eloise Hawking saying my son is Daniel Faraday, that seemed a little bit more dramatic than it should have been. Why did Dan leave for Ann Arbor? I mean, he was doing research, but how did they find out about his abilities in physics? Daniel came back to the island because he saw Jack, Kate, and Hurley in the Dharma photo. Did he get that picture in the weekly Dharma Now newsletter? As a matter of fact, Dan, it was your mother. Jack, I'm sorry, that's the worst yo mama joke I've ever heard. Eloise Hawking is all about destiny and things being meant to happen. How can she be wrong about the Losties going back to 1977? I mean, Kate was there to save young Ben, although Saeed was the one who shot him. Whoa, Star Trek preview through the Lost logo. I could have done without that sneak peek. This preview's much better. Do you know what destiny means? This conversation between Daniel and his mom, freaking me out. 864, why is that number important? Well, 8 times 108. Young Daniel said that he could make time. Not the first reference to time in this episode. His mother decided that there was no more time for distractions. She was setting him up from a young age to go to the island. Love to trade theories about this one, but that was awesome. Phil, Jack. Jack, Phil. Right on time is what Daniel says while waiting for Pierre Chang. If Daniel had been away from the island for so long, how does he know Pierre Chang's schedule? This is the scene from the opening of the season. How awesome is that? Daniel wants Pierre Chang to evacuate the island because he believes the incident is going to happen in 6 hours. It's very interesting because including this episode, there are only 4 hours of Lost left this season. It's almost like things are going to be happening in real time, or time that's overlapping itself. I'm from the future. How many times in history, besides Marty McFly, has that line actually worked? He has to do what he's supposed to do. Daniel's talking about Pierre Chang making a decision about something. Daniel got a research grant from Charles Widmore, so Eloise Hawking has been shaping his life. Widmore has been backing him financially. Random question, how did Daniel get the last name Faraday? How much time do we have until someone realizes he's gone? How can Daniel's mother in 1977 get them back to their real time? Question of the week. Let's say the end of season 5, the Losties get back to their real time. Yay! What happens next? According to Widmore, we know that there is a war on the horizon. Make a prediction about what will happen in season 6 and why. Big ideas, small ideas, funny ideas, what will happen to Vincent ideas. This flash forback is the continuation of the season 4 flashback of Daniel. Will we find out why he was upset? No. But instead, we find out that woman's name was Caroline, his caretaker. She had a wedding ring on. Is that important? The island will heal Daniel, just like Locke, just like Rose, just like Jin. Your mother is an other. Hey, I can rhyme too. It's Kate's fate. Jack wants to go back. Hurley's hair is curly. Saeed wants to plant seeds. H.G. Wells. I love that nickname. Kate's first reaction when going out on an adventure is to get some guns. This is why bad things happen to them. Hey, let's go into a troubling situation with a bunch of loaded guns. Yeah, that's the greatest idea we've ever had. Why is Daniel telling Charlotte to leave the island knowing that she will be killed later on? Has Daniel finally accepted his destiny? Or something else? By the way, young Charlotte, adorable. Do you have something for a beginner? That was an awesome line. We have no time, but we have a shootout at the OK Corral, which is totally unnecessary. Explosion! Daniel is turning out to be such a tragic hero in this episode. I love him all the more. Miss Hawking is convincing him to go to the island, and he says, "Will it make you proud of me?" That line is just heartbreaking. Daniel foreshadows it. He says any one of them can die because this, 1977, is their present. Daniel had that bullet graze just like Renee Walker from 24. And Hurley has that guitar. Why? Oh, Phil, why do you have to bang on the door at the wrong moment? The energy under the swan will be kept at bay by pushing the button. By not pushing the button, cause the crash. This will result in the freighter coming to the island. Dominoes. Daniel says he was focusing on the constants and he forgot about the variables. It makes sense that if people can be constants, then why can't people be variables? Daniel's gone a little crazy with wanting to change the future. Is this all because he wants to save Charlotte? He's going to destroy the energy under the swan by detonating Jughead? And now we're back at the hospital with Penny and Desmond. Full circle. Miss Hawking doesn't know what's going to happen next? Interesting. And now Hawking and Widmore finally have a speaking scene together? He's my son too. Totally called it! Why is Daniel walking into their camp armed? How stupid is that? How does Richard not remember meeting Daniel 23 years earlier? Daniel was shot by his own mother. How messed up is that? But remember, even if Daniel's dead, that doesn't mean that's the last time we'll see him. Now Daniel's journal might have the solution. Now it's time for everybody's favorite message board chatter. First off, somebody tried to say that Eloise and Charles both had blue eyes, thus it's impossible that they could have had Daniel as their son because he has brown eyes. I know in high school we learned about big B, little b, and how brown eyes are dominant, and that if two people have blue eyes, they're gonna have a blue-eyed child. But ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. That 2x2 chart doesn't account for green eyes or hazel eyes. The complexity of genetics is so much more vast than big B, little b. There are a lot of comments about Daniel's death saying that it was the worst death scene ever. I disagree. This place is death! Others are saying that Daniel isn't really dead. Again, I disagree. There's been a lot of hype the last few weeks about a main character dying, and if they keep Daniel alive like they did Charlotte for a few episodes, I may have to Nikki and Paolo him. And to answer some questions about the age of Charlotte, here's an explanation. Yes, in Season 4, when Ben rounded off Charlotte's information, he said that she was born in 1979. But of course, we're in 1977, and there is a little girl by the name of Charlotte. Originally, the character of Charlotte was supposed to have been born in 1971, but when Rebecca Mader took the part of Charlotte, she was a little bit too young. So they changed it, kind of on the spot, for her to be born in 1979, which the producers have owned up as to being a mistake. Finally, someone pointed out something that I've been struggling with since last night's episode. Daniel has been hard set against preventing the incident from ever happening. But what if his actions, and now consequently the actions of the Losties through his journal, will cause the incident, thus completing the time loop? Now, if you change one thing in the time loop, you mess up the entire time loop. This leads to theory of the week. Let's say Daniel's right, and in 1977 they changed something so that the incident never happens and the plane crash in 2004 never happens. What happens next? Oceanic 815 lands in LA, and the events of Lost never happen. Bloop! Then the freighter team never goes to the island. The Sawyer-Jin connection never jumped through time, eventually landing in the 1970s. The rest of the Losties never go back to the island via Flight 316. And by not jumping through time, Jughead is never buried back in 1954. And Daniel never gives them the idea in 1977 to detonate Jughead to stop the incident from ever happening. And the whole thing crumbles on itself. It won't work. It can't work. The incident has to happen. That is my theory. Shrug. Next week's episode is called Follow the Leader. It's a Richard episode. I always hated that game, Follow the Leader, growing up. It wasn't that I wasn't good at it. I was great. I just didn't like the idea of people following me so closely. It kind of made me paranoid.